gets in the zone. Get into state.
Good evening, and welcome to another Rocky Brand live stream. Hopefully people can see this. I usually wait till somebody hits hello in the chat, and then I know that people are there. And there's David saying hi, Carl. So that's another weekly relief done. We're all sorted and we're all live. So I'm excited today. We're going to be speaking to Stephen, who is the creator of an amazing brand strategy course, which is part of Brandmaster Academy, and it's called Brandmaster Secrets. And there's another course as well called Brandmaster Workshops, but I'm not going to get too deep into it because we'll let Stephen talk about that. But we've had some questions through the Rocky Brand Discord group, which is great. So we've got some stuff to ask Stephen, and Stephen and I are just going to let this roll as I tend to do with my live streams. We're not going to, we're just going to have a chat. I know that he's had a good day and he's home now, and he's a couple of beers in, so it should be interesting. He'll be all chilled and relaxed, and it's all going to be good. So, and then I should have cracked the beer open as well, so that I could have had that, but I've just got some apple tango. That's going to have to do me. We'll pretend it's cider. So let's jump over to the Zoom.
You drink enough of that and it will kick in.
And hopefully what we'll do is we'll use the live chat again, and hopefully people will tell me that they can see you, Stephen. And once they can, we will watch over. So David, Samasha, if you can say yes, we can see Stephen, then we're all good, and hopefully you can hear him too. I've already left the question up there. Look, I'm so disorganized. Got questions on the screen and everything. So,
can you see me? You can see me, right?
I can see you. I can see you, and
I can hear you, and you can hear me,
and we can hear one another. And it looks like David's saying, "Hi, Stephen. Nice to meet you." So everyone can see everyone. We're all good. Technology is working for us. So. Official welcome, Stephen. Thanks so much for coming on. What I will say is, in the past, I have already interviewed Stephen about Brandmaster Academy, and it was going to be an edited video, and we did it by Zoom, and I was going to edit it and everything, and then I just got caught up with, the day-to-day business stuff, and I'll get to that, and then by the time I kind of got around to actually editing it, Stephen had brought out a whole new course and things had adapted and stuff. And I thought, you know what? Let's just get Stephen on a live stream and let's actually just, chat and let Stephen talk and discuss it. So, Stephen, just give you, just introduce yourself, a little bit of background, where you've come from and stuff. And then we'll probably open up to the questions and just take it from there.
Yeah, no problem at all. Yeah, so my background, I won't go back too far, but just to kind of give you a little bit of insight. My background early in my career was actually in finance. Believe it or not, it was in the stock market, and I had qualifications in economics and business, and as much as I loved that kind of white collar trajectory, and I was kind of proud of the trajectory that I was on, there was something kind of missing. I didn't, I wasn't vibing with what I was doing. I'm very ambitious, and I always tried to read books and stuff like that, and I just found them so boring. And when the GFC hit, I was kind of thrown into this kind of crossroads to answer the question, well, what are you going to do now? Because nobody trusted brokers back then.
Yeah.
And that's the trajectory I was on, to become a stockbroker. So I kind of dug deep, and I asked the question, what do I want to do? And design there was no question. It's something that I did in my spare time. I used to play with Photoshop for hours past, and I didn't, and so I knew that that's what I wanted to do. So I got into design, and then branding kind of landed on my map, and I was like, I love this. I really, really love this. So I was doing brand identity design, and kind of following the agency path of, climbing the agency ladder from junior to midway to senior. And then like most designers who are, in that kind of realm, it's a question of, do I want to keep working for the man, and where do I want to go with this, or do I want to work for myself? And I actually started to have, referrals come in. A lot of people saying, oh, can you, my friend has a business, they want to. So I started to freelance for myself, and then I kind of cut the cord of my agency, and I was like, all right, I'm going to do this. And I went out, and it started off pretty good. I didn't know anything about marketing. I didn't have to do anything about marketing because referrals were just landing on my lap. And then I started to notice a change in the market, like the appetite from my existing customers, who I had a great relationship with, by the way. It started to change, and they came back to me less and less, and the referrals stopped coming, and I started to go, what's going on here? And that's when I noticed the freelancer.com and Odesk kind of landing on the map.
Yeah.
And that was like, okay, so I can, and I actually pulled one of my clients aside, and I said, listen, what's going on? Like, all of this has changed. And he was like, look, to be honest, Stephen, you're quite expensive.
Yeah.
I can go and get this done cheaper online. And that became the thing, that became the sentence that I heard over and over again. I can get this done cheaper online. So that kind of brought me to this place of going, all right, well, what do I do now? Do I compete with these prices? Or if not, what do I do differently? So I started to explore how I could be different. And that brought up this word differentiation. And that opened up into positioning. And that opened up into brand strategy. And I was like, whoa, like,
yeah,
there's this whole world that I didn't know about. And that became like a drug for me after that. I was like, I read every book I could. I read every article. I interviewed people as well, brand strategists working in-house at big companies, just to kind of find out what it was all about. And so that's when I realized, what I'm offering here, I can't compete. Like logo design, it's starting to become this commodity.
Yeah.
What if I offer a higher level of service? So that's what I started to do. I created my own brand strategy for my own company, and in doing that, I started to create this framework and this product that I knew that my clients needed. Because if I just gave them a logo, and I had this with other clients, by the way, I created their logo and their website, and they came back to me and went, "What now?" And at the time, at the time, I didn't have an answer for them, because I knew nothing about marketing. I knew nothing about brand strategy. But the more I learned, the more I realized, well, actually, this is not just differentiating myself. This is me giving them the tools that they need to become successful. And that's why they're coming to me in the first place. They're coming to me looking for a brand, thinking that with a logo that I'm giving them a brand. And I was telling them, yeah, I'm giving you a brand, but I wasn't. I really wasn't. And giving them a plan for their brand through strategy, then I was giving them something tangible that they could use to then go on and manage their brand. So over time, I started to share all of this stuff with my designer friends. I started to create content, and all of a sudden, I started to get a lot of questions saying, how do you do this and how do you do that? So I created this framework and this system, and that turned into Brand Master Academy. And that's where I spend a lot of my time today, just kind of teaching logo designers, graphic designers, copywriters, even marketers how to build brands using strategy so that they can provide a better service to their clients and earn more in doing that as well. So it's a win-win for everybody. So that's the background of how I got to where I am at the moment.
It's it seems like not a straightforward journey, but you're passionate about absorbing. If you get a passion for an area, it sounds like you really absorb everything. Like going to the extent of interviewing, brand strategists who are working in companies and stuff. I'll be honest, that's not the type of thing that I would think about doing naturally. If someone said to me, you should go and do that, then, oh yeah, that's a great idea. But just doing that off your own back, and sort of coming to the conclusion that, well, I've got all of this stuff anyway, so why don't I create a framework that I can sell, and help other designers, do that. Most people, I think, just are very sort of focused on their own business, and they create their own little systems, but a lot of people's systems suit themselves but don't suit other, because you make your own shortcuts, and we all do stuff through muscle memory, and I call it muscle memory, but brain matter memory of how you can achieve things more quickly, and that's basically expertise over the years of getting to be good at something, and that's why professional designers can create really good results, but in shorter time periods.
To be honest, the way it came about was very, very organic, and it was a series of questions. It was like, it started with, how can I be different to these guys?
Mm-hmm.
And that brought up this keyword that I had never heard of: differentiation strategy. And then I was like, okay, well, what's that? And then that led me to positioning, and then, well, what's that? And I'm just curious by nature.
Yeah.
And I'm a very visual person in my thinking. And when I find something that I didn't know about before, and now I know about it, I need to compartmentalize it. So in my head, I've got a series of boxes, and I go, well, where does this one go? It's like your socks in your drawer.
Yeah.
You know where your socks go. You know where your t-shirts go, and that's how my mind works. It creates this visual compartmentalization, and I started to put all of these words in boxes, and the more I learned, the more I realized I didn't know, and then I started and then it all just kind of came together. So it wasn't a case of me going, I need to create a framework. It was just like, this goes here, that goes there, and then I started to apply everything. So it was just a very, very natural progression.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I'm just someone's saying your audio is quite low, so I'm just trying to boost
Mine
it.
or yours?
Yours.
Okay, I'll turn that up there. I'm just trying to microphone.
Boost it at my side as well if I can, without blowing people's eardrums out. I think that's as high as I can boost your audio, but
yeah. I've got my my Yeti over here, so I'll go close like that. Yeah. But I don't, as I was just telling you before, I'm in a brand new studio. I've just moved to France, and I'm kind of all over the place at the moment, so I turned
it up a little bit, and I can see the meters going up, so it should be a little bit louder. Right, it's one of the problems. The picture you can see straight away. Audio, it's difficult to see what people are getting through. But yeah, I like the fact that you organize stuff visually in your head to kind of see where things go, and not everyone has that ability. And some people's sock drawers will be organized, and some people's sock drawers will be mismatched pairs and things like that.
And I don't want to see other people's sock drawers.
I'm sure you don't. But that kind of neatly brings me into where Brandmaster Academy or Brandmaster Secrets helped me. And I should say this as well, because in that I'd been doing strategy stuff for a while, in terms of linking it to logo and brand identity design. In that I knew, like you, I was, wanting to raise my prices, and, I'd been doing this for a while, and, competing against Fiverr and Upwork, and the price for logo design seemed to be getting lower and lower and lower. And I'm like, but I want to be going higher. One way is like you offer more things, so you add on business cards and you add on stationery, but what you're doing is you're adding more work for more money, which isn't being more profitable. It's just adding more work and more hours into the job. And so, like you, I was like, okay, well I was thinking, how am I different? How am I different to all the other logo designers? And I started looking around, and like you, I was like, well, I do think about the strategic side of logo design, and how can I, because I've been doing that anyway, but I wasn't charging more for that added value that I was giving to my clients. And then it was just one of my business coaches says, well, you do offer more than your average logo designer who's just providing a graphical ident that, as you said, goes on a website, goes on what's next. He said, but what you're doing is you're giving people a pathway that when you hand over the stuff, they know where to continue going with it. And then they come back to you and say, okay, we're now at this point. Can we get some graphics from you for that and stuff? So,
I came across that very bridge as well, because I knew that my processes were solid. I knew that my work compared to others, and the thought process that went behind my work was far greater. However, from the client's perspective, what they're looking at is the outcome. They don't want to know, or they don't need to know, the processes you go through to get to the end result. And to complicate things even more, most people can't tell the difference between a good logo and a bad logo. Now, there's a lot of clients will tell you that they feel like when they get a good logo, they feel that connection to the logo. But most entrepreneurs coming into the world, if they're given the choice between logo X over here, which costs $5,000, or logo Y over there, which costs $500, they wouldn't be able to justify the difference in the price. So your processes don't justify that end result either. It's only when you start to bring to life what you're going through and then enhance the deliverables of that, does it add value to the client?
Yeah. And you're right. I think getting that across can be difficult, because one of the things that I realized one of the things that first came to my attention where I started to notice that clients were accepting my higher proposal prices was that I was including a process. I was including saying, look, here's what it involves, here's what we'll do, we'll look, I look at your values, I look at, your vision and stuff, and I imbue the logo with that so that it kind of will reflect some of it, but your logo can't do all of that work. But it's important that that we do all of that work. And in doing that, it actually took the client's mind away from the logo and thinking more about how they were actually going to interact with their customers. Like and that's when the messaging started to come in. And how do we tell our, we say story these days. How do we tell our story so that people, interact? But it's like, how do we communicate with that, And then they start to understand that the logo isn't going to do all of that, but by working with me, they start to be able to understand. So for me, creating a logo, I'm trying to create something that will communicate to their ideal customer and attract them. I'm not creating a logo for the client. And that's, one of the questions and the people that listen to me on this all the time.
But the beauty of this process is that your clients already know this. Somewhere in the back of their mind, they already know that their logo, that their brand is not their logo, because we all have relationships with brands. We all have those brands where the substitute just doesn't cut it. So we all subconsciously know that there is something more. And when you start to talk about these kinds of things, why we're different, what's the meaning that we're going to give to our clients, why are they going to choose us? What do we value? What do we believe? What kind of personality are we going to put out there? It all kind of clicks with them, and they start to go, now I start to get it. And there's an education process there. And if you send your client away with more knowledge and more understanding about the brand that they're building, they're so grateful for that, because 100%, they get it already. They get it, but they just can't put their finger on it. And when you shine a light on it and go, that's what it is, then they go, now I get it. And that's what justifies your value.
And it's great. It's great when especially if it happens sort of in the room, so to speak, if you're communicating with them. And You can see that they've struggled for a long time, and you just you might be whatever part of the kind of the strategy map we're going through, and it's and they just the epiphany light comes on, and it's just the best feeling ever. And they go away with a spring in their step, at the end of that thing. But you can tell that from now on, they're going to be thinking about everything differently. And you're right about education. So for me, the thing that made it not easy to get better clients is my YouTube channel, is by putting out and the same as you do as well, as putting out these snippets about all the different elements of brand and strategy and what they do. Now, people might watch one and then not connect it to another thing, but as they start to build up that picture of a whole, and like you said, this relates to this, relates to this, relates to this, and it all builds upon each other. And that's one of the things that I love about Brandmaster Secrets, is the way that it's structured, in how that this leads into this and leads into that. And if you look at it and if you go, okay, what would happen if we took out step 3 and just went 1, 2, 4, 5? You realize that each step is quite integral to do that. And I've had clients who have said, look, we don't have the budget that you're asking for. What can we leave that mod? When and Stephen will talk about this, but part of the process is you do a brand intensive, and then you provide a roadmap of how you can help the client, and you present that roadmap with pricing and what's involved, and so they see that and they go, what if we took out that one and we did that one later? And I can now say to them, well, if we take out the customer avatar part, trying to, who's our ideal customer, how can we then go to sort of tone of voice and archetype work if we don't know who we're trying to speak to? We can kind of do all of that, and I loved that, and
I've had that so many times, and my go-to answers always with analogies. I love analogies; they just hit home. And I say I've said in the past, look, we can do that, but when baking a cake, we could also decide to not put in the sugar, but the end result is not going to be the same.
Yeah.
Every step has a reason for being there. It's not just fluff. We're not just, putting in values for the sake of values or positioning for the sake of positioning. It all follows a process, and it all leads to this end outcome.
And like you said, some clients don't really care about what the process entails and all of the work that goes into it. It's what do they see at the end? And that's where the end result of Brandmaster Secrets is a Brandmaster guide that you create for the client, and that's what they see. That's the end result. But I can tell everyone that's watching this that inside the process of Brandmaster Secrets, there's a lot going on. There's Excel sheets coming out your ears. There's cheat sheets. There's all sorts of things that help you build that up. And there was a good question actually. There's a private Facebook group for the students for people who've bought the course, and one person asked the other day about, do you work through the sheets with your client, or do you just have a conversation with your client and then you fill the sheets in later on? And that's what I love about Brandmaster Secrets, is you could do both if you want. But I find that if you work through the Excel sheets with a client, it's pretty tedious, just kind of them watching you type stuff in. And I much prefer to have the Excel sheets open and just having like a Zoom call and just almost taking notes and recording the Zoom call so that I can then go in later and kind of fill in, because you need to flesh some things out as well, because clients can be quite...
Yeah, and look, to kind of give people who don't know behind the scenes of Brandmaster Secrets a bit of insight. Yes, within Brandmaster Secrets, it is a very, very in-depth process. And part of the beauty of that is that it's not just, follow this step, follow that step, and then you're a brand strategist. It gives you the fundamental understanding of what you're doing. And the in-depth process allows you to go very, very deep. A lot of that is done by yourself by taking some of the client's information. This could be done through questionnaires or collaboration sessions where you talk through the questionnaire with the client to gather that information. But as you progress, you will find that workshops are a very, very effective way to build a brand strategy with the client as opposed to for the client. And that's when you can bring the process into the room with the client, but you wouldn't do it in the same format with the Excel spreadsheets. You make it more appealing to them with with keynotes and exercises that are interactive. So when you are building the brand strategy, yes, you can sit down and do all the research and kind of be in your silo with the information that you've gathered in the beginning, or you can bring the client through your process with workshops. So there are a couple of different ways that you can do it, but Brand Master Secrets definitely gives you that fundamental understanding that you need. So you can kind of, as I said before, categorize all these boxes, put all of these keywords into different places, audience research, customer avatars, positioning strategy, differentiation strategy, storytelling, messaging, core message. All of these words, when I started out, my head was exploding because I didn't know where anything went. And if you just learn all of these things in a silo and you don't have the dots connecting, it can get very, very overwhelming.
Yeah.
But when you have the framework and you know where everything goes, you can bring that then into your conversations with your clients, because you know where everything goes. And if they ask you a question, it doesn't catch you off guard and go, oh, what was that again? You know where everything goes and why you're doing what you're doing and the reason behind that as well.
Yeah, and I think the good thing as well about the course is that you do say, we will revisit these things again. It's not once you kind of get it in, it's cast in stone, because like I mentioned, you go through all the stages and you'll bring out new information, which will, you go back and you kind of polish up things nearer the start, and it kind of it's a back and forth all the way through for me. And then one of the other things which you developed really recently was, and I'll bring up the Brandmaster Academy website. I might be able to do that now. Actually, let's see if this works. And hopefully we're both still on screen, and you can still hear Stephen. But so
while you're bringing that up, I would imagine there's a lot of a lot of your followers who are logo designers, and they're new to strategy for the first time, and they've probably heard words such as brand purpose and brand values and positioning and storytelling, and it can get very, very overwhelming, because when you try to learn all of these things and then you try to go, well, how does that apply to me and what I'm doing? And, how can I then offer that to my client? Or how do I then get paid more for that? Or what does the end result look like? Mm-hmm. So, when you start to ask bigger questions about what you're doing for your client from a logo design perspective, it opens up all of these other doors. And at the very, very center point of all of that is the customer. And I'm sure everybody's heard of customer avatars, buyer personas, audience research, but really you need to understand exactly who your audience is. And you might have also heard of demographics and psychographics, which kind of gives you an idea of, their life and, the circumstances of their life and their behavioral patterns. But that still doesn't really tell you what you need to know in order to make that connection with that customer. You have to continue to dig deep into, well, okay, what are they actually trying to achieve? If they were to take me up on my service or buy my product, what's their end goal in doing that? Do they want to have, a more successful business? Do they want to have a better lifestyle? Do they want to, create this beautiful life, personal life to not have to work again? What is their end goal that they want to achieve? And if they don't overcome this challenge that I'm going to help them with, that my product or my service is going to help them overcome, what will their life look like if they don't? So this is really getting into the crux of, what we all think and we all feel when we buy a product or a service. And then, the process, the thought process that we go through to making a buying decision. And at the very center of branding, they're the types of questions that you're answering, because as much as you can bang on about values and purpose, and they all serve a purpose, by the way, if you don't get quickly to the point of why would my customer choose my brand instead of my competitors, then a fancy looking logo, a beautiful looking website with beautiful UX design is not going to make a blind bit of difference, because you're not getting to the crux of what your customer needs to know. And when you understand that and when that clicks, then you go, aha, then everything else starts to fall into place. And the importance of all these elements, the personality of your brand, the attributes that you're going to communicate with. Well, why am I going to communicate with these types of attributes? Well, there are a couple of different reasons for that. One, my customer is this type of person. And number two, well, they want this certain type of role for me to play in their lives as a brand. And these attributes categorize that. So there are so many different ways to connect with your customer, so many different strategies that you can use, techniques you can use. And until you have all of that laid out and you know all the different roles of all of these elements, then you're kind of shooting in the dark. You don't really know what you're doing. You're playing a guessing game. And without that framework, it kind of leaves you a bit overwhelmed. So getting all of that information, getting all of those elements down, getting them boxed, knowing what process goes first, the reason for doing this process, and then being able to articulate that to your clients to highlight the value that you offer. That's really where the value of offering strategy as opposed to just these design services comes into play, because you're sending your client away with so much more. They walk away from having done business with you with so much more understanding about what their brand is, because you've talked them through the process.
Yeah, it's like I say, it's dependent on the client as well. It's like what you can give them is, and it doesn't really matter what stage the business is at. It could be a fairly new business or one which has been around for quite a while. The most satisfying work I do tends to be with the businesses that have been around a while, and then you take them through some brand strategy work, and they're just kind of face palming themselves that they've just not been doing things wrong. These businesses are quite successful businesses, but they feel maybe a little bit clunky, and they're not sure that they're, a lot of them are spending money on marketing and just throwing it to see what sticks, because they don't have a real handle on who they're trying to speak to. And then you go take them through this stuff, and that's one of the things which I find quite tricky. And I told you that we did a live stream a little while ago about imposter syndrome and stuff, is that sometimes you feel with the strategic side of things, and you're speaking to businesses that have been around and business owners, that that they've maybe heard it all before, and so you're just telling them the same stuff again. But it's not like that at all. They may have heard the terms, but they probably don't know what it means exactly, or they've completely misinterpreted it. And that's one of the things that I like about what you did with Brandmaster Secrets, is when you start to go through sort of the brand foundational stuff, purpose, vision, mission, values, you don't use those words. It's like belief is a word that you use. And that's I find that works really well, because if you start by saying purpose, vision, mission, and values, they go, yeah, we know all that. We've got those already. They're on our website. We've got those. But when you talk about belief, you say, okay, so what do you believe in and stuff? There's something that doesn't connect with that, because We all see videos out there. It's all buzzwords these days. Purpose is a buzzword these days. Vision and values, it's all buzzwords. Storytelling, it's all buzzwords. Because it's easy to throw out there. But if you change the wording and have a conversation and you start to tell, so what do you believe in? What is it? What are you trying to do? What are you trying to achieve? What's your big, bad, scary monster that you're trying to defeat in your industry and stuff? And have these fun conversations. You get it all jotted down and you write it down, you put it on the screen, and then you just kind of transition into, okay, so that's your purpose. Oh, okay. Well, we've had a purpose, but that's not what we say. We say this, and it's usually some really cliched piece of nonsense, that's, and by just having these conversations to go deeper, as you've said, just the smile on their faces when they're like, oh, because they instantly feel like they're super clever and they feel like they've now got one up on their main competitors. Usually that's the experience I have. They're like, oh, Joe Blogs Industries, they have not done anything like this. We're going to look so, we're going to have such a better foothold on what we're doing compared to them, because they're just doing the same old stuff that we were doing. And that's the thing, is that one company copies the other, who copies another, who copies another. And it just becomes bland.
And that's exactly what I touched on earlier when I said a lot of your clients will already they'll subconsciously know all of these things. Yet it's not until you start having a conversation with them and start helping them to piece together the puzzle, do they start to get it. And in Brand Master Secrets, I talk specifically about avoiding using buzzwords, because when you use words like purpose, vision, mission, values, they've already compartmentalized that. And they already think that they understand what that's for and where it goes. And when you pull that keyword away and you replace it with something else that makes them think a little bit deeper, then they're prepared to go where they need to go.
Yeah.
And that really opens up. And as you said, when the penny drops and they start to go, wow, now I start to get it. That's an epiphany moment. That's, as a strategist, it's so rewarding, because you're like, I wanted to tell you this from the start, but we had to go through this process to get there. And, that's the beauty of having a process like that. It guides them through step by step. And by the end, they feel part of the brand. They feel attached to the brand because they've helped to build that brand.
And I think that's what I loved the most about that very first, the brand foundations part, is that by getting them to go, oh, maybe I didn't know it all, it opens up their mind to all of the modules that are coming afterwards. They're now thinking, okay, I'm not going to go into this with any preconceived conception of what call's going to take me through. Even though I might hear some things, I'm going to be open-minded, and this is probably going to change things for us. And I love that. I've not had anyone fight against any of the work that I've done. And the way that kind of Brandmaster Secrets, I won't say saved me, but definitely helped me, was I almost had preconceptions of what brand strategy was. I was like, I know what it is and I know all the things, but what I didn't have is I didn't have a really solid structure to take clients through. It was a bit kind of like a messy sock drawer. It was kind of jumping around a little bit. There was no direct connection between the sections. I knew what the outcomes were, and for me, I could create a brand master guide at the end. But the important part is bringing the client along with you. And if you're just basically going and beavering away and then delivering something, it's still just something that you're handing over, and they don't know really how to use it, and there's that educational part. And so by having the structure of knowing that this leads into this, and this is why that leads into this, and this is why we did that, because it's great as well when you get to module 5 and they go, oh, I now understand why we spent so much time on that in module 3, because that's going to really make this easier and more direct if we'd have missed that out, then we wouldn't know how to do this. And that's really good. And what that did for me, the main thing that Brandmaster Secrets gave me, and it's something I talk about on my channel all the time, was confidence in my abilities, because I could now take the knowledge. Now, some people will be coming to Brandmaster Secrets with no knowledge or very little knowledge of brand strategy. And I'll say, don't let that put you off. You will learn a ton. For me, it was a little bit a different journey. I'd done a lot of, I'd done brand strategy courses and certifications, and they were all really good. I did level C with Martin Neumeyer. I got to be in the room with Martin Neumeyer, and it was just like a dream come true. And it was really good, and it was hands-on workshops, and I learned a ton. But what it didn't really give me when I went back to my office was, right, how do I take a client through that? I know all this stuff, but how do I do this? And so finding...
And I bet as well that, even though you had been through all of this, and look, I can tell by the white in your beard just as much as the white in mine.
Yes.
This isn't your first rodeo. No doubt, coming into brand strategy and trying to learn all this stuff, you had massive imposter syndrome because
huge.
You weren't sure that what you were doing was right for them. You knew these things, but you didn't have a system. And I know that you had imposter syndrome with brand strategy, because we've had a conversation about that in the past. And, that's exactly how I felt as well, because, I was kind of, there was no information for me out there when I started on that journey. And I kind of had to create all of this stuff myself. But in doing this, in throwing yourself in, and in making mistakes, and asking the right questions, and this is something that I learned. If you go in to try to be an expert and try to flex your muscles and show your client that you are the strategist, I'm here to save the day and to bring you strategy, and your dreams are going to come true, you are going to put yourself under so much pressure. A good strategist is someone who goes in there with no preconceived ideas and hundreds of questions.
Yeah.
So you could go in there as, an 18-year-old just out of college, armed with a bunch of questions. And if you ask all of these questions, then you leave with your clients thinking that you are a proper expert, because you held the court. You asked the questions, you guided the conversation, and that relieves so much pressure and so much of that imposter syndrome by just saying, you know what? I have a process in the background, but I'm going into this room, or I'm going into this Zoom, or I'm going into this phone call, knowing that I don't know anything about their business. And the way that I overcome that is by showing them that I don't know anything about their business, and showing them that I am so curious that I want to know absolutely everything about it. And if you just follow that philosophy alone, the weight that lifts off you from feeling like, oh, I'm not good enough, I'm not a strategist, I don't have all this experience, to flipping that to going, well, I don't know anything about, I need to find out this information, and the way I do that is questions. It completely flips the switch. And, it releases that pressure, and it actually allows you to do your best work as well. Because if you become insatiably curious, then, you're going to get a great outcome.
Yeah. And clients love to talk about their business.
Yes.
So, you're giving them the opportunity to just talk. And, and often just through asking the right questions and then talking through their business, they will have little epiphany moments themselves, because they've never verbalized it. They've maybe thought it in their head, but there's such a change between thinking about something in your head and actually saying it. And when you say it, it's a very different effect on the brain. And you can see, especially on Zooms and stuff and in person, you can see as they're halfway through the sentence, they're just like, oh my God, I've just realized this thing. And you'll get the credit for it because you asked the question that made them say it. And so,
And it's just, if you think about psychology, and like, I don't want to get too off the beaten
well, I
path
know
here,
you
but
love your psychology around
I
the
I
strategy stuff. Yeah.
I love taking areas that are based on human behavior and applying them to strategy, because at the end of the day, that's what we're doing. We're trying to connect a business with a person, and in order to do that, we need to understand people.
Yeah.
And if you think about what psychologists do and why they get paid so much to do it, all they do is ask questions.
With the
They
little
don't
notebook and
they don't give any answers.
yeah.
They do not give any answers. They don't diagnose and say, well, based on your answers, I think we need to prescribe you this. No, they simply sit down and they ask you questions, and they ask the right questions to extract what's already in there. And anyone who has been to a psychologist before and who has had a good experience, they'll vouch for that process. That they weren't given any enlightened piece of information. They were just asked the right questions that helped them to come to their own conclusions and their own epiphanies that made them understand and feel better about themselves. So in part, that's the role of a strategist, is not to go and gift a strategy unto their client. It's about helping your client come to their own conclusions and extracting the information that's already there to build the image of the brand that is already in their head. And all you have to do is ask the right questions to get that information out and give it to them.
And when you get to the end and you have the brand master guide and you deliver it, and they're like, this is the brand that I've always believed was there, but just didn't know how to bring it out, is the way to do that. I'm conscious of time, and I want to get through some of the questions that people have asked, because I know that they're live on the stream right now, so I probably wouldn't hear the end of it if I didn't ask some of their questions. So let me see. So Henry was first in the Discord. So Henry asked the question. Some of these will be a mix of different things. So Henry was asking, how should we align our audience to an archetype? Is it by average? What would be the best way to determine their common goal?
Is Henry on the live now?
Henry is.
G'day, Henry. How are you, my man?
It's like 5 a.m. or something for Henry. He's in Singapore, so he's always keen.
Good man, Henry. All right, I'll try and make this answer worth your while. So, archetypes, it's important not to get caught up in archetypes. I love archetypes, and you will find some experts out there talking down archetypes and saying, including archetypes in the top 10 BS of marketing and stuff like that. I will never look at another marketer's processes and go, that's BS. Because if they have a process that helps them to get to a better end result, then I love that. Yeah. And I love that. And, no two strategies are the same. But the way archetypes work, or the way I like to look at archetypes, is a foundational starting point for the brand's personality. And the way that we align our brand to an archetype is by first understanding the person that we're trying to connect with. And this is why I love psychology, because when we understand that person, and again, demographics and psychographics will give you the starting point of that, we can start to extract their attributes. What do they do on weekends? Do they go mountain biking? Do they go camping? Or do they go shopping? I had I did a podcast recently with another student, Denny Currian, and he was charging $4,000 for logo design, and he offered his first brand strategy, and he was bold. I'll give it to him. He charged the client $60,000, and he brought and this was a high end law firm in Florida.
60.
60,000.
Nice.
Yeah. And he went into a room with these lawyers, and he talked about this imposter syndrome, and he brought them through the process of archetypes. And as soon as he started to talk about the maverick and the attributes of the ruler archetype, it really, really resonated with that leadership team. And then he aligned it to other brands within that space. Then he aligned it to other to movie characters. And then, that brought out this believability and this identity within that leadership team of, yes, this is who we are. And archetypes are just, again, it's a compartmentalization of a set of attributes. And it allows us to say, okay, this is the general direction that we're going in. The ruler over here, our audience, they're definitely rulers. They display all these attributes of a ruler. So the ruler definitely needs to be within our archetypal mix. We definitely need to display those attributes. But then we also need to ask the question, okay, what's our role in their lives? Because at the end of the day, it's all well and good that we're displaying these ruler attributes, but we also need to consider what they want us to do as a brand. Now, you could be doing any number of things, and if you're a pure ruler archetype brand, then you would be probably trying to elevate their status in society and confirm to them that they are the top dogs. But maybe they're coming to you for something different. Maybe they relate to you through those ruler archetypes, but what they want from you is your wisdom and your guidance. And in that case, the superiority attributes of the ruler archetype might not give them what they want from a connection with a brand. Maybe it's the sage instead that will show them that you are the guide and you can guide them along. So maybe your archetypal mix would be some of the attributes of the ruler over here to connect with them on their level, but some of the sage attributes over here to go, this is how I'm going to take you down this path. So you really need to understand the context of who the person is and the role that your brand is playing in their lives. But again, that's just the archetypes. From there, it's a case of, okay, how are we going to use these attributes within our brand personality, within our brand identity, within our messaging? What's our language and tone going to be like? So it's just using that as a foundation to get clarity and go, yes, this is the type of personality that we want to display. But now that we have that, let's get a little bit more detailed in our language and in our tone and in the type of content that we put out there, the types of messaging that we put out there. So that's the foundational question that you need to answer. Who is our customer? What attributes do they have? What attributes are they attracted to? And what's our role in their lives? And what attributes really wrap that role up? And how can we display both within our brand?
That was a detailed answer. Luckily, Henry, this is going to be on YouTube, Henry. And you can watch that back as many times as you need to get all the information on that. I know that for me, archetypes was probably the weakest point or the weakest thing for me with my knowledge of strategy. And it's funny, before even sort of knowing about Brandmaster Secrets and stuff, when you do a search for archetypes, your 90 million page long archetypes blog post comes up every single time. It's probably the most in-depth post I've seen on archetypes, and it's amazing.
It's been number one on Google for probably about 5 years.
I'm not surprised.
But what I love about archetypes is that it's relatable, and you can even replace the word archetypes. You can rebrand the word archetypes because you can call them, personas or personalities, whatever you want to call them. But if you're able to bring in relatable things like other brands that your audience will know, that your customers will know, or movie characters that they can relate to, that's when they start to go, we're Maverick from Top Gun.
Yeah.
We're Don Corleone from The Godfather. That's when they can really make a connection. And that's the beauty of archetypes, is that you can help them relate. And
I think as well, when you start to do that, it helps them envisage the type of stories that they'll tell to get the language and the tone across, to go, yeah, that's definitely the type of person that we're speaking to. And they're at this point in their life where this is where they're needing this specific help. And that was one of the things that was cleared up for me, because I'd always thought, once you found out the client's archetype or your customer's archetype, your archetype was the same, so we're the same. But then you learn that that's not, as you've said, there can be a mix. So you're taking bits, and there's even an archetype of the everyman, which is all about we are the same. We want to belong. But yeah, it's a big topic. You cover a lot of stuff in there, and it's really, really good. So I think all of the other questions that I have, I think there's one question being asked in the chat, but the other questions I've here are all from Lise, and Lise is on the call as well. So the first one's quite a long one, so hopefully I've already sent it to you, Steve, so hopefully you've got it in your email if you need to read back on it. Okay, so Lise asks, how to approach brand strategy for a brand with different types of audiences. So, for example, a charity that does awareness outreach, but also has members that are typically a lot more knowledgeable on the subject and need very different things from the organization. Would it make sense to have two distinct but recognizably belonging together looks and voices, or should it be one?
Well, this and it's a great question. And this is the beauty of strategy. It's not just a tick the box game. It's a game of thinking. What's going to be best for me. Now, there is only one brand. Okay, so you wouldn't have one brand with multiple voices. You don't want to create a schizophrenic brand. There's always only ever one brand. Now, if you decide that you have an offering that appeals to completely different people, or you have multiple offerings and you have a business and you know that this offering over here appeals to that person, this offering over here appeals to this person. Well, then there's the question, do we split this brand up? Do we create brand A and brand B over here? And if so, do we make them linked? Do we create two brands that are like sister brands, where they are clearly a part of the same family? Or do we create two completely different brands? Now, there are brands out there that have multiple buyer personas, completely different people, completely different passions and beliefs. Nike is a perfect example. Nike started by Phil Knight as a running shoe company, and their customers were people who enjoy running. Fast forward to today, and Nike has a portfolio of different types of products that appeal to different types of people. So Nike only have one brand. They only have one belief, one tagline, one spirit. That is Nike. Yet they have all of these other different market segments that they appeal to. So the decision is this: do we have one overarching brand that appeals to these different customers, or do we split the brand up? And that is the beauty of strategy. You have that choice to make. Now, if you want to keep the same brand to appeal to different customers, this is where differentiated marketing comes into play. So you would have one brand with one set of beliefs, one internal brand, one positioning strategy, one voice, one brand language profile, one visual identity. Again, think of Nike. But then you would have multiple buyer personas in multiple market segments. So again, using the Nike example, we can appeal over here to people who have a passion for running, for athletics, and we can speak a certain language to those people. We also have people who are into basketball over here. Now they're going to speak a different language to the guys over here. The language is going to be different, the types of things that they're going to say that will trigger them, that will get them excited. It's going to be completely different. This is what differentiated marketing is. Now, sitting above the differentiated marketing, they're still guided by the brand. They're still guided by the brand's attributes, what they believe in, and that then feeds down into the individual differentiated marketing campaigns. And what you will typically have is you'll have marketing managers who are in charge of these different niches, and they understand the people within these niches. They understand the people who love basketball. they know all these different types of players. They know who their heroes are. They know about the history of basketball, the slang that they use on the court. I know nothing about basketball, by the way. So just
I was waiting on you bringing all the slang out.
Yeah. Just in case there's a basketball fan in the background going, he knows nothing about basketball. And at the same time, you will have the passionate track and field runners over here, and they will speak a different language. But Nike still speaks to both of them. Now, Nike could have decided to split these brands up and call them something completely different. They could have had a house of brands. They could have had, or a branded house, Nike sitting on top, and they could have had Nike football, and they do in a way, but that's not how they promote it. They talk individually to these market segments as Nike. So if you have multiple buyer personas and you have different products that appeal to different people, then you have a choice to make. Do we want to keep the same brand and keep the same beliefs and the same positioning and speak to these segments in a slightly different way? Or do we want to split that brand up? And that's the beauty of strategy. You have to make that decision based on where you want to take that brand, how you want to grow it, and the types of people that you're talking to.
Yeah, it can get, I think it can get complex if you think about it too much, but it's not that complicated. And like Nike, for example, who's, their kind of purposes, they want to help people to win, and just win at anything, win at life, win at their sport that they're doing. And like you say, so the language that they'll use to talk to runners who want to win is going to be different to the language of winning to basketball players.
And the way they're positioning is they're speaking to athletes. If you have a body, you're an athlete.
Yeah, that's it.
And that is how they bring people who love football, people who love basketball, people who love all these different sports. They bring them together. They find a common denominator, and that's how they relate to all of them. They call them athletes. So if you have multiple buyer personas, find the common denominator that brings them together.
Across the board, yeah. That's going to work. I mean, that was another really good answer. I think Lisa's second question kind of ties into that, and you've probably technically answered it really, which is similarly, how would you decide if sub-brands should follow the main brand's look and feel, like Gmail, Google Drive, Google Calendar, etc., or have its own, like YouTube? I think the YouTube one's slightly different because that was around and that was kind of a buy-over rather than a generative thing.
And again, it's where do you want to take that brand in the future? Do you want that brand to be completely independent, to have its own look and feel, its own voice and tone? Like if you think of Unilever and all their different
I was just
about
to say, Procter and Gamble, who've got...
you've got Dove, who have a completely different look and feel. It looks nothing like, let's say, Lynx or Axe, which has a completely different voice and tone. So it gives you more flexibility if you split the brands up. But if you're going to build brand equity within a parent brand, that can help leverage the other brands.
Yeah. And I think, for me, I would think, if you're going to have separate brands, it's twice the work, because you're running two very distinct entities. With the Nike, it's still a lot of work, but it's still coming from the core, so you're still able to kind of go back to that one core. With the two separate ones, it's completely different purpose, values, mission. They've got their own independent things, but there's a pro and con to that is that if you've got independent brands which are look to the public like they run independently, if something goes wrong with Dove, it's not going to impact Lynx because they're different. But if you have Nike and something goes wrong with Nike, whether it's running shoes or basketball shoes, that impacts Nike as a brand.
Absolutely. And
so you kind of there's those decisions to kind of bring in there. Next two questions are still from Lee's, but they're very short ones and they should be short answers. Is Brandmaster Academy lifetime access?
Yes. So whatever you sign up for, there is no expiry date. And I actually, I've got students in there who before every workshop or every they'll go back through different sections and they'll refresh. So you'll be able to do that. There's no expiry on it, and you're gonna have it for forever.
Yeah, it's great to be able to just go back and just refresh stuff. And one thing I'll say as well is that Stephen's constantly updating it. You know, there's always updates to things, which is really good. And he listens to people. I mentioned before that there's a private Facebook group. So there's a private Facebook group for Brandmaster Secrets, and I'm pretty sure I'm right in thinking there's a private group for Brandmaster workshops.
Yep.
I never really pay attention when I get flagged on Facebook that someone's posted. I just jump in and kind of take part in the conversations. I don't look to see which one I'm in. But and I will say as well that, you know, if you are going to, if you're like, oh, you know, I've got maybe the budget to buy one, which one? So, you know, I'll ask you the question, Stephen. If I've got the budget to buy one, should I buy Brandmaster Secrets or should I buy Brandmaster Workshops? What would be the one you would suggest first?
It depends on where you are. If you're new to brand strategy, definitely Brandmaster Secrets. If you've been running strategy for a while and you want to introduce workshops so you can bring your clients through your process, then Brandmaster Workshops. If you were to do one before the other, I would say Brandmaster Secrets, then Brandmaster Workshops.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. Even though Brandmaster Workshops wasn't around at the time that I discovered Brandmaster Academy, I think if I had just gone straight into Brandmaster Workshops, I probably would have been fine because I had a lot of the knowledge, and Brandmaster Workshops gives you a structure as well, and it is more aimed at kind of workshopping with your clients. But I personally am very, very glad that I went through Brandmaster Secrets first, because like I say, I had weaknesses in certain areas like archetypes, and Brandmaster Secrets pushed me to learn more about that stuff. And you've kind of already answered this as well. Lisa's saying, at what point of their careers should people ideally be to get the most out of Brandmaster Secrets?
It's probably going to sound like a convoluted answer, but really, if you are starting out in logo design or any type of branding, then get into it now. If you've been in it for 20 years and you know that you can offer a higher level of service through strategy, get into it now. We have students who are starting out with logo design. We have students with over 20 years of marketing who have said to me, who have emailed me and said, I've gotten more from your course than I did my top level university in the United States, which I'm still paying my debt off to. So if you have a career in branding, then the stuff that you're going to learn in Brandmaster Secrets will never leave you, and you will always have it in your back pocket.
Yeah, I mean, I'm one of those people. You know, I've been doing logo design for, well, when I found Brandmaster Secrets, probably about 17, 18 years. And, you know, it's just, like I say, it changed things. Before I'd even finished the course, so I was charging I don't mind talking about my prices. I was charging £6,000 for logo design with some very basic, probably just brand foundations. That's all. That's what I was doing. Is brand foundations, purpose, vision, mission, values, and logo. And I was charging £6,000 for that. And took me a long time to get to that and have the confidence to get to that. Then I started going through Brandmaster Secrets, and I was like, I know all this stuff. This is great. I can now kind of do this. And I had a client contact me through my YouTube channel, and just got speaking to them, and they were obviously wanting, you know, a lot of that. They'd been around for a year or two, and they were struggling, and they needed to differentiate themselves to compete against price-focused businesses. They didn't want to compete on price. They wanted to actually be quite expensive, but they also wanted to be not seen to be like Rolex and stuff. They still wanted to be everyman kind of brand. And I was like, I'm learning. I'm getting all this structure from Brandmaster Secrets, and I didn't go quite as high as $60,000, $60,000, which is what that must be about £50,000. But what I did do is I went through everything, and I presented a proposal for £18,000, and they said, yeah, that looks great. And whether they said it looks great or not, I know that there was a lot of money for them, but they could see through the value of it. And one thing which I should mention is that part of the process, it's like Stephen, do you want to quickly kind of talk about how it's like a 3-step process? It's not like you just go in with, here's an £18,000 thing. You lead them to that point. Do you want to quickly talk about that?
Yeah, look, I'll talk quickly because I know you got another question in the chat as well. You have to create a client generation system where you've got traffic coming into your website and a way to collect that traffic and lead them into a phone call. That has to be a discovery session where you start that process of asking questions. And within that phone call, you turn their perspective on what they need from you. Chances are they might come to you looking for a logo design, but in asking the right questions, you get them to question their own logic. So they go, maybe I need more than that. And then from there, what you do, instead of offering a $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $60,000 brand strategy, you offer them what's called an entry-level product, the opportunity to work with you in a one-on-one setting that is cost effective. This can be $497, $997. You've got some people charging $5,000 just for the intensive. And this is a product that you provide them with, which gives them what's called a brand strategy roadmap. And the roadmap is not a full brand strategy. It just sets out what a brand strategy could look like and the steps that they could take in order to get to that brand strategy. And that allows them to kind of go, you know what, I can afford that. It sounds good. And this whole process of bringing them through the intensive, it's an educational process. It's not a sales process. The sales happen subconsciously. Yeah. And by the end of it, they walk away with so much knowledge and so much, they have a vision of where they could go. They get excited about it. And then they're prepared to take you up on your brand strategy. And that's when you offer the brand strategy services. So there is a stepping stone process to it. It's not just, now I know brand strategy, let's go and start charging $60,000. No, there is a process to it. And you have to guide your clients through this process. So it's more than just the strategy frameworks. It's how to actually sell this to your clients and how to deliver on that as well.
Yeah, and it works really well. It's worked every single time. Like you said, the important part is that, as Stephen called it, the brand intensive, is that it's a useful document to the client, even if they decide they don't want to go ahead. Because like, they could get that, and it gives them sort of this roadmap, and they could go away and try and do it themselves. But that educational piece that you're doing all the way through it lets them see that there is, there's a lot that runs in the background with the strategy, and they'll want the expert to take them through it by the end of it. It might be that they'll take the intensive and they might need to go away. I've had 2 clients who've loved the intensive, seen the value, but they just didn't have the money at the time. But then they came back. One was 3 months later and one was 6 months later, because they just needed to get the funds to go through it. And that was the key thing for me as well, is they didn't say, oh, can we take this bit out? And we could start now if we can take this bit out and take this bit out and take this bit out. Now, the only way I would start it by taking a bit out is taking out the visual side, the brand identity stuff, which is at the end anyway. So you can build the strategic stuff, and then when they get the funds, we can then start to work on visualizing, working on the logo and working on, website and stuff. But that was another kind of, I'd heard about funnels, and I'd read about funnels and how to build things up, but I just hated the words. I hate it. It felt like I was it feels to me when people talk about funnels and running leads through funnels, it just felt like tactics, and I hate that. I hate that I'm trying to use tactics on people. The steps that you take people through, or that that's part of the course, it's not tactics. they're learning something valuable at every stage. And that's what I loved about it, is that even if they stopped working with me after that initial 30-minute phone call, I know they're going to go away thinking about things entirely differently,
Yeah.
and questioning their own brand and what they thought was right. And for me, that's a good thing, because that helps
Yeah.
our industry as a whole. It helps graphic designers, it helps strategists, it helps marketers, because these people are now going, oh geez, it's not press the create logo button. It's not, it's not all Canva templates and things like that. And so for me, and that's one of the reasons I started my YouTube channel, was to educate people, to try to lift what we do out of being a commodity into something that, we're just, some of us have done graphic design, learned and taught ourselves for longer than doctors have taken to learn to be a doctor. So why are we treated like it's, oh, I'm not paying more than 50 quid for a logo? It's difficult. And well spotted that there was a question in the chat from David. So David, and obviously David was the first to join, so David gets to ask a question. And David's saying, do you think some of your clients are too subjective in the way that they view their audience? Of course we know our audience, but then you present them with the extensive research and they think again.
Yeah, again, it's all about asking those questions and really digging deep. So if you have a process, if you were to ask your client, well, tell me about your customer, they would give you some demographics, some psychographics. Yeah, that, women between 30 and 35, they're professionals, they work in HR, and, they would have this basic understanding from probably a demographic, if you're lucky, a psychographic point of view. But if you have a process where you bring them through and you ask questions that go way beyond that, yes, you set the foundation with who these people are, where do they live, what's their income, what's their family status, do they have kids, what type of car do they drive, and then what do they do on weekends, do they go for, what type of restaurants do they go to? But then you get down into, what are they actually trying to achieve? If they achieve that, what trajectory does that send them on, and what does their life look like in 10 years? Why are they trying to get there? Is it because they're ambitious by nature? Are they trying to compete with the next door neighbor to keep up appearances? Where is it that they're going to, and why are they going there? If they're able to achieve that, what does this release inside of them? What do they feel? And what is that burning desire behind them? Why are they trying to get there? And of course, there are clients that believe they've seen all of this before, but when you're able to especially from an internal brand perspective, you're able to change those words and flip the script. That it's not about trying to get to the brand purpose. It's, what do you actually believe? When you're able to frame those questions differently, your clients will start to look at it differently. So my suggestion there, if you come across clients who believe that they've seen it all before, and I actually talk about this in Brand Master Secrets and the brand strategy matrix, which includes the brand intensive, is to frame your questions in a way that does not expose the keyword that they think they already know. If you ask them questions in a more human way that takes out the keyword and replaces it with something more in depth, then you're going to get a more an answer where they're actually trying to figure out, what they believe, what they think the answer is to the question, rather than, oh, I've seen this before, I know what it is, let's move on to the next section. So it's all about the questions that you ask, how deep you go with those questions, and how you frame those questions as well. And I speak about framing in Brand Master Secrets as well, and it's a really, really important part to the way you ask questions. So yes, you do come across clients who think that they know it all. It's how you ask those questions that help them flip the switch and come to a different perspective.
What's interesting about that is I have a workshop tomorrow with a client who's going through this process, and we're at the archetypes stage now. We've just done the finding out who his customers are, and when we started, it was very much residential customers. It's a electrical company, electrician, and it was all very much residential. But as we got to the, and that's who, we're doing the vision, purpose, all of that, and he was 100% on it. And then we started looking at audience, and kind of picked a few people. Okay, give me some types of people. And as we've gone through, it's become more obvious that actually the opportunities for his business to grow lie in the more corporate side. So because we'd start talking about Mrs. Jones and why does she want some new lights done, and it was like keeping up with the other Joneses on the other side, and all those things. You got to keep up appearances, and there was an element of the environment and changing over to LEDs and all of that stuff. But then he had this other guy called Kevin, and he only had one Kevin, but that one Kevin was a joy to work with, and the profits were more. And we just started talking about Kevin and what are you doing for Kevin, and we started talking, and he's like, I'd love to work with more Kevins, and it just opened up everything. And now, and it almost left him in a really, not an awkward position, but he was like, oh, I don't know what to do now, because, we're in this. And so we actually added in another couple of weeks, another couple of workshops to really hone in on that, because it was like, well, we don't want to kind of move forward too much now if we want that. And with him, we've now ended up with two audiences, which are very different, but it'll be one brand. So it's a bit like, when you were answering Lee's earlier on. So it'll still be the overarching one brand, but two very different audiences. One who's a manager of who's managing a corporate building, who needs to look after the electrics and stuff, and then residential. And even within residential, he has kind of two different audiences within that as well, like the high end posh people, and then the kind of the more working class type of audience. And again, it's that it was epiphany moments for him. He was just like, we've just been so blinkered that, like all the other electricians, it's like residential, because that's where all the leads are. But the amount of work he has to do to kind of get those leads, and it's small payments and stuff, whereas with the corporate, it's long term, it's more profitable. And it's like, well, where do we want to put our efforts into this? And so he's kind of one of those people who thought he knew his audience, but then when you start to go through we were doing like you said, the psychographics, demographics, and he was kind of throwing things out there, and then you start to move into, okay, so how do you impact their life? How do you impact their careers? How do you impact this? What difference does it make to them getting up in the morning? And he's like, and in his mindset, his business was about fuse boards and stuff. So me asking him questions about how do you impact their life though? Do they have to worry less about fires starting and stuff? And he's like, I haven't thought about that. God, we do have a big impact on people's lives. And so he's now already thinking about marketing campaigns and getting, adverts done, like as in video adverts done, where he can tell stories through the adverts of a day in the life of. And those are things that I didn't do with clients. I was
and that's the beauty of strategy, Call. That's why I spoke earlier about taking the position of curiosity and just asking questions. It just opens up this world, and it can bring you down any different direction.
I suppose it's a good and a bad thing, because if you've priced something up for what you think is a 4-hour workshop, and then you open up all of these doors, it's almost kind of reeling it back in again.
And you get better with that over time. But you still, as a strategist, you need to ask the important questions to get to the best end result.
Yeah, and it's been more than clear for me. And this was a client as well that when I presented the price to him, he was a bit taken aback at how much it was. But then what I did was, and this is what I'd recommend to anyone, whether you're, whatever you do, is this is where case studies are worth their weight in gold. I was able to show him the case study of that first client that I'd gone through, and I showed him the Brand Master Guide, and he's like, wow, because it was just a little 2-man company. He's like, you make that looks like a global brand. He says, that's amazing, all of that stuff. And he's like, if you hadn't shown me that, he said, I probably wouldn't be going ahead with this, because I didn't in my head get to grips with that, which was good for me because it made me realize I need to improve my educational process, that people understand the value of what I'm trying to offer. But as well, without Brandmaster Secrets, I wouldn't have had that Brandmaster guide to show as a case study, which convinced someone who probably thought they were going to be given a quote for like $2,000 to go, okay, it's 17 and a half. Let's go ahead and do it. And that's the beauty of it. And it's like I say, it gives you the confidence that you can present something that shows, there's a lot of work goes into it. I had to say to him, I said, this is, 4 months of work. It's not it's not a 2-week job. There's a lot of, work goes into that. And he was like, I can tell. And so there was a little bit of ego stroking, for me as well. And it's like, well, yeah, it does look pretty good. But, that's where, I have you to thank for taking all of the time that it took you to hone Brandmaster Secrets into what it is. And I know that, I say, you're still tweaking things here and there because you're still learning every day and listening to your own students and what they're experiencing and how you can improve stuff.
Absolutely.
But I suppose, I get, I tend to run on with these. So we're at about 90 minutes. So what I'll say is, do you want to just tell people where they can find you, how, if they can connect with you, where they can see your content, so that after this they can go away and start watching all your stuff?
Absolutely. You can go to brandmasteracademy.com. On the homepage, there is a pro brand strategy blueprint. If you're new to brand strategy and you want to kind of start to get a feel for it, that's a great place to start. Or you could just Google or search Brandmaster Academy on YouTube, and there's a ton of videos for you to start gorging on there. I've had some people tell me that they've taken a week and they've gorged through everything, and they've gotten a mountain of information. So there's lots of stuff on YouTube, but the best place to start would definitely be that pro brand strategy blueprint at brandmasteracademy.com.
What I'll do is, once the video is kind of all optimized and stuff, I'll drop those links into the video description as well on YouTube, so that people can just click on the links. And I'll also I'll drop the links into the Rocky Brand Discord group. Thanks to all the members who've joined today, and thank you for your questions. For Stephen, it's really good to hear the answers to that. I'm not afraid to admit I still learned a few new things through the answers. We're always learning. But Stephen, thanks so much for giving us your time today. You've probably learned a few things you need to set up in your new studio.
Absolutely.
To get things done. But the black background just looks great. It's just nice and clean, not too busy. You've got me thinking. It goes on forever. Yeah, it does. It just looks like an abyss behind you. I'm probably thinking about simplifying mine's down as well, because I think it just looks really good. But yeah, thanks for your time. Thanks everyone for giving us your time, for coming along and watching. And if you're watching the replay, thank you for watching it to this point. You're probably one of few, but I'm sure you've learned an awful lot. And I'm pretty sure as well, Stephen would like to, if you find his content useful, please share it with others, so that we can all learn and improve, and all give better results for our clients. So until I see you next time, stay great, folks. Bye for now.
Thanks, my man.